They didn't even get out of the car. I was 12. My legs were shaking, and I was clutching a trash bag full of my clothes, not a suitcase. A trash bag. We were parked outside a gray brick building that smelled like mildew and rules. A woman in a navy sweater was waiting at the door, clipboard in hand, pretending not to see the tears I kept blinking back. Mom looked at me from the driver's seat like I was a task she had finally crossed off her list. "You'll survive," she said, checking her nails. In the back seat, my older sister was scrolling through her phone. New acrylics. Designer bag in her lap. She didn't even look up. Dad just stared at the steering wheel like he wanted to disappear into it. They'd been telling me all week that money was tight, that things were complicated, that they had to make hard choices. But I already knew. They were choosing her. Again, choosing her ballet recitals, her prep school tuition, her birthday trip to Paris. And I was the sacrifice, the extra mouth they didn't budget for. Mom leaned over and opened the car door from the inside. "Come on, Maya. Don't make this dramatic." I stepped out slowly, bag in hand. The door shut behind me before I even reached the steps. No hug. No goodbye. No, we'll come back soon. They just drove away. I watched their silver SUV turn the corner and disappear like I had never existed. The woman with the clipboard put a hand on my shoulder. "Let's get you settled in, sweetie." I nodded, but I didn't say a word. Because in that moment, I learned something most kids never have to. The people who are supposed to love you unconditionally sometimes don't. I was a ghost by the time I reached the front desk. A silent girl with big eyes and a garbage bag for a suitcase. No one from my family called that night. Or the next. Not that week. Not that month. Not that year. They had made their choice. But so would I. My name is Maya Rivers. And from wherever you're watching this video, stay with me. Because the girl they left behind, she didn't disappear. She learned to build an empire out of everything they threw away. I used to think love meant staying quiet. That if I didn't complain, didn't ask for too much, didn't cry when things were unfair, they'd see me. I was wrong. From the beginning, my sister Amelia was the headline. The golden child, top of her class, trained in ballet, dressed like catalog ad. And I was the footnote, her younger sister Maya always said with a shrug. When Amelia got straight A's, they framed the report card. When I did, "Well, you're only in 7th grade. Let's see if it sticks." She got braces, a tutor, a custom closet. I got hand-me-downs and lectures about not being a burden. One day, I overheard Mom on the phone. She was talking to my aunt, laughing. Maya is sensitive. She always thinks she's being left out. She'll grow out of it. But I didn't grow out of it. I grew through it, each year a little more invisible, each win smaller in their eyes, each need just a little too much. They called it tough love. They said it built character. What it built was silence. I remember coming home with a certificate from school, most determined. It was nothing big, but it was something. I held it out at the dinner table, hoping for a smile. Mom glanced up and said, "Is that for everyone?" Dad didn't even look. Amelia smirked. I got that in 5th grade. I folded the certificate and put it in a drawer. Never brought anything else home after that. But it wasn't just favoritism. It was something darker. Like they had decided early on who was worth betting on, and who was just extra weight. When Amelia turned 15, they threw her a full-on gala. Caterers, a string quartet, a rented hall. When I turned 12, they gave me a cupcake and said, "Don't blow all the candles at once." 2 weeks later, they left me in foster care because she needed them more. Those were Mom's words, delivered with a smile like she was being generous, as if abandoning your child was an act of love when it was done for the right sibling. And the worst part? For a while, I believed her. I thought maybe I was the problem. Maybe I wasn't lovable. Maybe Amelia really did need them more. But that belief? That was the last piece of them I ever carried. Because when people like that call it love, what they really mean is, you're only valuable if we say so. And the second you stop needing their validation, you become dangerous. The first night in foster care, I didn't cry. I thought I would. But there was something about the quiet, the unfamiliar sheets, the distant hum of someone else's television that made the grief settle into a dull, steady ache. Like my body had already adjusted to being unwanted. My new foster mom, Miss Callahan, was kind in a cautious way, the kind of woman who had seen too many kids come and go to get attached easily. She gave me my own room, a small space with pale yellow walls and a squeaky bed. "This is yours now," she said. I nodded, didn't speak, didn't believe her, but she didn't push. And slowly, without meaning to, I started breathing again. She cooked dinner every night. Simple food. No lectures. No forced smiles. Just presence. I got used to the routine. School. Chores. Homework. No birthday banners or ballet recitals. But also no smirks. No silence sharp enough to slice skin. I started working by 14. First at a corner store. Then babysitting. Then dishwashing. I saved every cent. No one was coming for me. So I built forward, step by step. I got through high school with no parties, no prom dress, no cheering crowd at graduation. But I graduated. With honors. Applied for scholarships. Wrote essays late into the night. Learned how to file taxes before I learned how to drive. College wasn't glamorous. It was a small in-state program with too many people and not enough parking. But it was mine. I studied business by day, cleaned offices by night, and sold custom-designed tote bags on Etsy for my dorm room. By my senior year, I had saved enough to take a risk. I turned my side hustle into a full-time plan. I didn't post about it. Didn't tell Ms. Callahan until after the launch. Didn't even consider telling my parents. They hadn't reached out in years. Not for holidays. Not for birthdays. Not even when I turned 18 and officially aged out of the system. But that silence, it stopped hurting. It started clearing space. Because as painful as it was to be forgotten, it gave me one rare gift. No one expected anything from me. No legacy to uphold. No image to protect. No hand-me-down dreams to chase. I had nothing, which meant I could build everything. And by the time my name was on a business license, by the time my brand started showing up on eco-boutique shelves, by the time strangers were wearing something I created, I realized something important. I wasn't surviving without them anymore. I was thriving because they were finally gone. The first time someone called me ma'am, I looked behind me. It was the UPS driver dropping off a bulk order of packaging for my business. He handed over 3 boxes and said, "Thanks, ma'am. Congrats on the growth." I stood there in my little sunlit workspace and just smiled. Because for the first time, someone saw me not as a girl who was left behind, but as a woman who had built something. The brand started with tote bags, then reusable pouches, then eco-friendly planners, then collaborations. Within 3 years, I had a modest but loyal online following. I was still operating small, still doing my own bookkeeping, still folding shipping boxes at night. But I was profitable, debt-free, and registered as a real business in 3 states. I never changed my name. Didn't hide. Didn't shout either. Just kept showing up. And as my business grew, something strange started happening. I began to get invited into spaces I once thought were locked to people like me. Small business panels, podcasts, trade expos, networking circles with designers and founders I used to admire from a screen. People introduced me as the girl who made it from nothing. They didn't know the half of it. I never shared the full story, never named names. But I didn't have to. I was building a life that spoke louder than any family legacy. And the best part? I wasn't doing it to prove them wrong. I was doing it because I had finally, quietly, learned how to believe in myself. Then one day, something came across my desk that stopped me cold. A struggling luxury retail startup, the kind that used to laugh at eco-conscious homemade brands like mine, was seeking new investment. Their numbers were tanking. Their leadership was fractured. They needed cash fast. And on the pitch deck under strategic advisors, I saw a name I hadn't read in years. Amelia Rivers. My sister. Apparently, life hadn't turned out quite as curated as she'd hoped. That's when it hit me. They were circling the drain. And I was one of the few investors in the room with the leverage to decide what happened next. I didn't rush. I didn't slam any doors. but I did lean in, not to save them, to see what people do when the person they left behind is suddenly sitting at the head of the table. I didn't reach out. I didn't send an email, didn't return the ones I received, but I read them. The first one came from a generic account. To whom it may concern, we are seeking potential investment partners to stabilize and rebrand our luxury platform during an upcoming relaunch phase. It was cold, corporate, desperate if you knew how to read between the lines. I knew. 2 weeks later, I got another. Different sender, different tone. Hi, Maya. I believe you and I may have crossed paths before. I'm Amelia Rivers, currently advising on the Luxora project. We're in an exciting phase and exploring strategic investors aligned with our values. I stopped reading after that. Luxora, the same company that once denied a collaboration with me, said my handmade products weren't brand appropriate. The same company my sister now worked for after her influencer path fizzled out, her brand sponsorships dried up, and her perfectly filtered life began to crack offline. They were broke, not struggling broke. Their lead investor pulled out. Their CEO quietly resigned. A legal dispute was brewing over misused funds. And my sister? Listed as creative advisor, but functioning more like a desperate mouthpiece. Pretending to hold a title when the company barely had walls. And me? I was one of the anonymous decision makers on the board reviewing their last chance funding request. They had no idea. Until the pitch call. They hosted it virtually. I kept my camera off. My name listed only as our Lane Ventures, the investment arm I had quietly built under a different name. Amelia presented. Her voice was practiced. Too bright. Too fast. She talked about redefining luxury and partnerships with sustainability-forward brands. I sat there, letting her sell a future she had once told me I'd never be part of. Then someone on the committee spoke up. There's concern about previous mismanagement. Can you speak to the misuse of marketing funds from Q1? She froze. Someone else added, we also flagged an academic credential discrepancy on your advisor's resume. It says Stanford, but we couldn't verify enrollment. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I let the silence stretch. Let her squirm. After the call, a summary email was sent to all stakeholders. Luxora's funding request was officially declined. I watched the notification pop up on my phone, then turn it off and walked outside. The air smelled like rain. I didn't feel powerful. I felt done. Because this wasn't revenge. This was gravity. The golden ones had finally fallen. And I didn't have to push. All I had to do was stand where they left me and grow roots. The first knock came on a Tuesday. I had just finished packing orders when the intercom buzzed. Hi, it's Amelia. For a second, I thought I misheard it. Her voice was shaky, smaller than I remembered. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity? It's persistent. I buzzed her in and waited by the door. When I opened it, she was standing there with a paper bag of pastries, like we were friends catching up after brunch. Hey, she said, eyes darting around the doorway. Can I come in? I didn't move. Why? She paused. I just wanted to talk. She looked different. Designer clothes traded for something neutral. Clean face. No camera-ready glow. She was unraveling and trying hard not to show it. I know you probably hate me, she said, but things are hard right now. I didn't speak. She continued. Mom and Dad lost the house. Investments dried up. We're trying to figure things out. I thought maybe... There it was. The reason. I thought maybe you could help us, she finally said. She said us, like we were ever a we. I stepped out and gently closed the door behind me, leaving her outside on the mat. I'm sorry things are hard, I said. Truly. She looked relieved for a second, like maybe I was going to rescue her. But when I was 12, I continued, things were hard for me too. She looked away, and I didn't see any of you then. I was a kid, she muttered. I didn't understand. You understood enough to watch me be left behind, I said, and never once ask where I went. She flinched. I built everything I have without a safety net, I added. Now you want to borrow mine. I'm not asking for much, she said quiet. Just something to help us get through this. I reached into the mailbox beside the door and pulled out an envelope I'd prepared days ago. I handed it to her. Inside was a list of resources: housing support, job placement agencies, financial literacy programs. All real, all helpful. Start here, I said. It's what I did. Her eyes filled with tears. You're really not going to help? I am helping, I said, just not in the way you hoped. And before she could say anything else, I went back inside and locked the door. I leaned against it, closed my eyes, took a breath that felt 10 years long. It didn't feel triumphant. It felt clean, because healing isn't about proving you're better. It's about finally knowing you don't owe anyone the version of you they never bothered to believe in. The next day, I got a voicemail from my mother. It started with a sigh. Maya, I know we've had our differences. I'm not proud of how things went, but your sister told me she saw you, that you gave her some pamphlets. She made it sound like I handed over junk mail, not the same resources I had once used to survive. Look, your father and we made mistakes. We admit that, but we're still your family. We're reaching out now. Isn't that what matters? She paused, waiting for her own words to sound noble. They didn't. I just think if you're doing so well, you could maybe help us. Not forever. Just for now. You owe us that much. That part stung, not because I believed it, but because I knew she did. They really thought I owed them something. For the food they gave me until I turned 12. For the roof they folded over my head before they took it away. For the childhood they treated like a loan I was supposed to pay back with my future. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Later that week, I got a text from my father. Short. Formal. We could really use your help. Your sister said you're doing well. We're proud of you. Proud of me. After ignoring every birthday. After walking away like I was someone else's problem. Now they were proud because they were desperate. I typed one line and hit send. You said I'd survive. I did. That doesn't mean I'm yours anymore. And then, without a second thought, I blocked their numbers. No ceremony. No warning. Just silence. The kind that protects. Not punishes. Because this wasn't a comeback story. It was a closing. Not a scream. Not a slap. Not revenge dressed as kindness. Just a quiet, clean goodbye. It's been a year since they came knocking. They haven't tried again. Maybe they got the message. Maybe not. But either way, it's no longer my story to worry about. This morning, I had coffee with Ms. Callahan, my foster mom. We sat in her tiny backyard garden. She brought out a mismatched mug and a plate of shortbread cookies, just like she did when I was 14 and trying not to cry over algebra. She still asks how the business is doing. Still brags about me like I'm her own. Still signs every birthday card with, "Love you like always." And now I believe her, because she showed up when it was hardest to love me. I fund her rent now. She doesn't ask. I just do it. Quietly. That's the thing about chosen family. You choose to show up. And they do too. I mentor young girls aging out of foster care now. Some of them think I'm lying when I say I used to sleep in a room with yellow walls and a trash bag for a suitcase. They laugh when I show them photos of my first tote bag design. But they listen closely when I say, you don't have to come from anything to become something. Every time I say it, I mean it more. The apartment I live in now isn't huge, but it has floor-to-ceiling windows that catch the sunrise just right. There's a wall covered in handwritten thank you notes from customers around the world. And on the top shelf sits one thing I keep just for me. That folded up, most determined certificate from 7th grade. The one no one celebrated. Except me. I look at it sometimes when I forget how far I've come. And on nights like this, when the wind is soft and the world is finally quiet, I write. Tonight's journal entry was short. They left me, but I didn't stay lost. I became my own rescue story. I don't dream of revenge anymore. I dream of peace, of rooms filled with people who don't need proof I belong, of love that doesn't come with terms and conditions. I wasn't their first choice, so I made myself mine, and I've never looked back.